Have you ever found yourself flipping through old photos, remembering a time that felt like just yesterday? A glance at a birthday party, a vacation, or even a quiet moment on a porch can stir up a wave of stories that feel too important to let fade away. In the quiet of those moments, many start to wonder, what if I wrote some of this down? Not for fame, not for anyone else's approval, but simply to make sure the memories, the lessons, and the heart of your journey don't get lost. That's where a personal memoir or legacy journal comes in. And if you've ever thought, my life isn't interesting enough, let me stop you right there, because it absolutely is. Starting a legacy journal isn't about writing a bestseller or crafting the perfect sentence. It's about creating a space where your truth lives. Your childhood memories, the people who shaped you, the lessons you learned through mistakes and triumphs, all that belongs somewhere beyond just your memory. When you begin to write these stories, even if it's just a few lines at a time, you give your future generations a map of where they come from. You give yourself the gift of reflection. And that's something powerful, especially later in life, when you start to see the bigger picture more clearly than ever. What's beautiful about starting now is that you have perspective. You're not caught in the rush the way you might have been earlier in life. You've seen the full seasons, spring beginnings, summer stretches, autumn changes, and quiet winter wisdom. And when you write from that place, your words carry weight, heart, and meaning. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're simply capturing truth in your voice on your terms. You don't need a fancy leather journal or a special app. Start with whatever feels comfortable. Maybe it's an old notebook tucked in your drawer or the Notes app on your phone. What matters is that you begin. Often, the hardest part is simply sitting down and deciding to start. You might stare at the blank page and wonder what on earth to write first. That's okay. Instead of forcing something big or perfect, start with a memory. Not necessarily your first memory, just a memory. Maybe it's the way your grandmother used to hum while cooking. Maybe it's the first time you danced with someone who made your heart skip. Maybe it's a mistake you made that ended up teaching you something you carry with you to this day. Once that first story is down, more will follow. Writing begets writing. The act of remembering becomes easier the more you allow yourself to slow down and listen to your thoughts. You don't have to write in order. Some days you'll feel like diving into your early school days. Other times, you'll find yourself reflecting on parenting or friendships or even regrets. There's no wrong way to do this. A legacy journal doesn't need chapters. It needs honesty, warmth, and the courage to show up as you are. And if you're still unsure what to say, consider this. Your voice is unlike anyone else's. No one has lived the exact life you've lived. Your challenges, your victories, your quiet moments of doubt or joy, they all belong on that page. This isn't just for your family, though they may treasure it one day. It's also for you. Writing about your life has a way of bringing clarity. It allows you to see how far you've come, how much you've grown, and how your story is still being written every day. The beautiful part of starting a personal memoir later in life is that you bring more depth to your words than you ever could have before. You know how precious time is. You know how easily little details can slip away if they're not captured. And now that the small moments often end up meaning the most. Let's keep this going, because once you've cracked open that door, there's so much more waiting to come through. One of the most freeing things about writing your personal story is that there are no rules about how it should sound. It doesn't need to follow anyone's style but your own. In fact, the more it sounds like you, the more meaningful it becomes. The beauty of a legacy journal isn't just in the memories. It's in the voice, the humor, the honesty, and even the pauses. When someone reads your words one day, they won't be looking for perfect grammar or polished storytelling. They'll be listening for you. The way you saw the world. The way you loved. The way you kept going. You might feel tempted to compare yourself to others, people who've published books or seem more writerly, but that's not the point here. This is not about measuring up. This is about capturing your truth without needing permission or perfection. Your journal doesn't need to be poetic or profound. It just needs to be real. Sometimes the most touching entries are the simplest. What the sky looked like on a quiet morning, how you felt the day you retired, the smell of your favorite dish filling the kitchen after a long day. What helps many people get into the rhythm is thinking of the journal as a conversation rather than a formal project. Imagine you're sitting across from someone who genuinely wants to know your story. Someone who won't interrupt, who won't judge, and who is hanging on your every word because they know how much you've seen and survived. That imaginary listener could be a grandchild, a friend, or even your younger self. Writing to them can unlock a natural flow that feels less like work and more like connection. And that connection is what makes this process so healing. As you write, you may uncover things you've forgotten. Feelings may surface, some joyful, some bittersweet. Give yourself room to feel it all. There's no rush to push through it. One of the quiet gifts of this season of life is the time to reflect at your own pace. Let the memories come as they will, without forcing or fixing. Some pages will be heavier than others, and that's okay. They are part of what makes your story whole. If you've ever saved a birthday card, a note from a loved one, or a newspaper clipping from years ago, consider pulling those out. Sometimes objects we held onto carry stories we haven't told yet. You might remember where you were when you received a letter, or why a particular piece of jewelry means more than its shine. These small keepsakes can spark stories waiting to be written down. They are not just things, they're doorways into the chapters that shaped you. And remember, your story is not just about the major milestones. It's just as much about the quiet in-betweens. The times you sat by the window during a storm. The way your hands learned to do something well over time. The moment you stood your ground for something that mattered. These details don't need to be dramatic. They only need to be yours. That's what will make your memoir feel alive. Some people choose to include reflections or thoughts on the world as it's changed around them. If that speaks to you, don't hesitate to share what you've observed. What's different now? What has stayed the same? What you hope others might remember or never forget? Even a simple reflection on how life feels now compared to years ago can reveal a depth of insight that only grows richer with time. Let the words find you naturally. There's no finish line, no prize for speed. Just a quiet and steady unfolding of a life that has been fully lived, and you're the only one who can tell it. As the pages begin to fill, something quietly profound starts to happen. You begin to recognize threads in your story that you may have never noticed before. Certain choices, moments of bravery, or turning points that once felt ordinary now reveal themselves as defining. Patterns of resilience, kindness, humor, or patience begin to stand out, and you start to see the architecture of your life not just as a series of events, but as a meaningful whole. It's in this unfolding that your journal becomes more than a record. It becomes a legacy in the truest sense. Even the process of revisiting difficult memories can be powerful. You're no longer inside the storm. You're looking at it from a place of wisdom and calm. Writing about struggles can bring a kind of quiet closure, a way to honor the strength it took to move through them. You don't need to dwell, but acknowledging your truth, even briefly, can be freeing. It tells the reader and yourself that life was complex, but you met it with courage. There's also something deeply valuable in writing about what you've learned. Not as advice, necessarily, but as reflections. Maybe you've discovered what really matters after all is said and done. Maybe you've come to appreciate simplicity or have grown more comfortable with letting go. Maybe you've noticed that joy often hides in the smallest places. These reflections, shared in your own words, hold quiet power. They offer insight that no textbook or online article could ever provide, because they're born of lived experience. Some people find it meaningful to include gratitude in their journaling, a way to gently close each entry by noting something they cherish. It might be a memory, a person, or simply the feeling of peace in a moment. Gratitude, when written regularly, tends to deepen your connection with life as it is now. It creates a warmth on the page that can be felt by anyone who reads it later, and perhaps most importantly, by you in the moment of writing it. Eventually, you may find yourself wondering what to do with all that you've written. There's no one right answer. Some choose to leave their journals for loved ones, wrapped in ribbon or tucked inside a special drawer. Others decide to type their pages up, print a few copies, or even record themselves reading favorite passages aloud. And then there are those who write simply for themselves, with no intention of sharing it all. Any of these choices are valid, because what matters most is that the words were written in the first place. At its heart, a legacy journal isn't about recounting everything. It's about capturing enough to feel seen and understood. It's about creating something real that stands outside of time. The power of putting your story into words lies not just in who might read it, but in how it brings you closer to the essence of your own life. That kind of reflection doesn't just help preserve the past. It enriches the present in quiet, beautiful ways. So if you've been waiting for the right moment to start, this be it. There is no perfect time, no right way, no ideal structure. There's just your story and the courage it takes to begin telling it. And once you do, you may find that what you thought was a collection of scattered memories is, in fact, a treasure, one only you could give the world. Here's to honoring the path you've walked, to sharing what's real, and to remembering that even in the later chapters, there's still so much to say.